Well, it's a great joy to be here. I have appreciated very much being able to get to know Brett. We're in a cohort together and have conversations periodically, and to get to learn from him. And, you know, he loves you all very deeply, and to get to watch this church from afar and cheer it on, that's been a gift. We lived for many years up in the Bay Area and had a couple of kids that went to college in Santa Barbara, which is where we live now, so I have done that drive a million times and always enjoy SLO. There's a restaurant here that serves sandwiches and burgers, and people are in line, 60 or 80 deep. I won't mention it because we don't do product placement, but its name is kind of the opposite of ice, and always love doing that. And then I'm very close to somebody who is the coach of the ultimate Frisbee team at UC Santa Cruz. And I think some of you go to Cal Poly, and Cal Poly has like the #1 ultimate Frisbee team in the whole Western region. You're like the Death Star of ultimate Frisbee. And so I celebrate you all, and am really grateful, have been looking forward to this for a while. I want to start with words written a long time ago by the Apostle Paul. They're quite sobering, really. They name something about the human condition that I think everybody feels at one point or another, and often in real deep ways. Here's how he says it. I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the wrong that I do not want to do, this I keep doing. This is in the 7th chapter of his letter to the church at Rome. Anybody ever feel this way? How come I do that? I'm not going to say that, and then I say it. I'm not going to look at that, and then I look at it. I'm not going to go there, and then I go there. I'm not going to mention her, and then I mention her. I'm not going to eat that. My southern grandmother lived with us when I was growing up. She was constantly baking things we knew we should not eat. Her recipe for popcorn, this is back before microwaves, was she would fry bacon and then pop the popcorn in the bacon grease. Yeah, there's a woo on that one, I thought so. And then cut the bacon up and put it into the popcorn. Mm-hmm. Nobody in my grandmother's family lived to be very old. Well, no, we shouldn't eat that stuff, but and then we suffer from this at deeper levels. Think about family life. We had 3 children in short order, so they were all at one point under the age of 4. One time I took us to get a family photo taken at a place called Kinder Photo, and I went through a series of stages. At first, it was kind of naive optimism. The kids will enjoy this. This will be fun. That didn't last very long at all because they were freaking out by the equipment and the stranger behind the camera. And so then I moved to the bribery stage. If you all smile, then everybody gets a free cookie from Mrs. Fields, and that didn't work too well, so then I moved to the threatening phase. You kids want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. It's a good way to get kids to smile, and that didn't work, so I pulled the kid that was most distraught out. Our middle child was just losing it, and I said, honey, I'll bet I know what you wish right now. I bet right now you wish you had baby tweezers. Baby Tweezers was this child's favorite doll. She named the doll herself Baby Tweezers. We don't know why. She was not a forceps delivery child. She just called the doll Baby. I bet right now you really wish you had Baby Tweezers. She couldn't even talk. She has big tears in her eyes. I said, well, honey, if you ever want to see Baby Tweezers alive and well. Now, why do I do that? When we started having kids, that's not the kind of father I pictured myself being. I thought I'd just be this kind of magic moments, creating memories, joyful, positive, whatever's going on. We had an image of that a moment ago. By the way, that was one of the most memorable communion presentations I have ever had. Did you all see Andrew and little Andrew Jr. right here at his dad, whatever his name is? Just, such a great picture of communion. There's a lot that I may not understand, but that's my dad. I want to be near him. That's the kind of dad that I want to be. But so often in family life, in relationships, in work, we just get stuck. I do what I don't want to do. I don't want to do what I do want to do. habits, addictions, time, money. And then one day there came into human history a man who had a power to help people get unstuck. And there's a woman that's trapped in an adulterous affair filled with shame. It's like chains come off. Or a religious leader named Nicodemus, and he was kind of trapped in, that need to look good that those of us who pursue faith often get stuck with. And then there's freedom. Or a real greedy tax collector nobody liked named Zacchaeus, and he's up in a tree, and Jesus, unsticks him. Disciples trapped by fear in a boat. Over and over again, there's this strange thing that people found themselves stuck. But oddly, when they would stick to him, when they would commit themselves, abandon themselves to Jesus, they found in this man their liberation. And he would talk about that. He would say things like, very truly, I tell you, whoever sins is a slave to sin. That's what Paul is saying. We don't use the word sin too much. It sounds kind of odd to us in our day. But why do I do what I don't want to do? Stuff that I'm ashamed of, stuff that I regret. Whoever sins is slave to sin. But if the Son sets you free, that's a staggering claim for a person to make. I'm going to set you free. You'll be free indeed. And now 2,000 years later, people still talk about this guy setting them free. So, one of the great case studies in it of the last century, about 90 years ago, a hopeless drunk, known to history as Bill W., hit bottom. He was addicted to alcohol. He tried to quit 1,000 times, made promises, written stuff in the family Bible, couldn't do it, lost a number of jobs, lost his money, lost his friends. He'd been in jail. He'd been hospitalized a number of times. Doctor informed his wife, Lois, that she had 3 choices. She could have him locked up, she could watch him go insane, or she could let him die. And Bill knew this was true. He knew it was true. A lot of folks in this room know, or you have experienced this, or there's somebody that you love, just that dark force. One night, Bill W. was invited into a little group of people, and they were followers of Jesus. They were called the Ortberg group. They devoted themselves to these rather intense engagements in spiritual practices of following Jesus, surrender to God, doing serious self-examination, getting real, honestly confessing to God, myself, and one other person, making amends to people that I have wronged, allowing God now to direct my thinking through meditating on Scripture and through prayer, living a life of service. And he discovered that through this way of life, he got freed from his compulsion to drink all the time. And then another guy named Dr. Bob, and then another guy, and over the next 4 years, about 100 people. And eventually they decided, we got to make this way of life known to others. And what became known as AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, was created. But here's the thing, nobody planned this. Nobody said, hey, let's try discipleship to Jesus as a method for treating clinical addiction to alcohol or anything else. It just happened. As a matter of historical fact, whatever you might think of Jesus, God, discipleship, any of that stuff, there emerged a spiritual way of life. Didn't involve medications, didn't involve surgery. Thank God for those things. This doesn't involve that. It's a spiritual way of life in which people who followed it with great intensity were given power to be liberated from an otherwise hopeless and fatal addiction. So, if this way of life, these steps and the principles behind them could bring deliverance and power and freedom to a bunch of hopeless drunks, might they not also be helpful for normal, healthy, emotionally mature, uncomplaining, non-judgmental, barely ever sinning, respectable people like everybody here at SLO City Church? Here's the idea. AA got the 12 steps from the church, and now the church needs them back. We need a non-legalistic, non-arbitrary, non-random, non-superficial way of life, actionable way of life that will put us in touch with God and spiritual reality and give us the power to be unstuck. Now, you may know AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, because it was born in church, often meets in churches. Generally in basements, on metal folding chairs, with bad coffee. They're messy people. But somehow when they meet in a mess, the raw honest mess of their lives, power flows. And they have a million sticky sayings in AA, kind of like Jesus had a lot of sticky sayings, because when you're dealing with life or death stuff, you got to get the cookies down where everybody can get at them. And one of their sayings was, when you go to church, you can go upstairs and hear about miracles, or you can come downstairs and watch them. Kind of sobering for people who do what folks like me do for a living. When I first began to study the 12 steps, a friend of mine, been in AA a long time, said to me, John, I predict it will not be long before you're jealous you're not an alcoholic. And he was right, it was not long. After the first service here at SLO, one of the women that came up to me talked about how she'd been in a 12-step group now for over a decade, just absolute raw pain, led her there the first time somebody talked about being a grateful alcoholic, and her response then was like, what in the world are you saying? This is the worst. And she said, today I understand. So, in the moments that remain in this talk, I want to go downstairs. You're getting ready to go to a great campus. That's wonderful. It'll be beautiful. But, you know, this church used to meet in a parking lot. And I've heard from folks today who said, you know, it's kind of what let me feel like it was a safe place to go. Yet nobody gets kicked out of a parking lot. Everybody belongs at a parking lot. So I want this to be kind of like a basement meeting, because I think you're called in SLO to be kind of a basement kind of a church. It starts this way. My name is John. I'm a sinner. Now, instead of just sitting there when somebody says something like that at a meeting, then everybody says, hi, John. And that's kind of a way of celebrating. Yep, we're all together in the same boat. So let's try it one more time. My name is John. I'm a sinner. Thank you so much. Friend of mine named Michael, been in AA a long time, says, in this community, the worse your story, the warmer your welcome. That's a lot like Jesus. The worse your story, the warmer your welcome. So we'll go through a couple steps today. You just might think as we go through them, maybe that's the step for me. And I'll invite you to actually take that step today as you think about discipleship to Jesus as a actionable, concrete, like I know if I'm doing it, way of life. So step one, real strange. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. In AA language, you could just plug in our fatal attraction to do wrong. Powerless over gossip, resentment, fear, workaholism, my image, approval addiction, whatever it is. And our lives had become unmanageable. I'm up against something I can't handle. My willpower can't handle. The Bible calls it sin, baffling, cunning, powerful, to use AA language. That word sin sounds odd, prudish, Victorian in our day, but it's naming something we all know that keeps me awake at 3 a.m. Why did I do that? Why did I not do that? So the place where the program, discipleship, begins, 12 steps, get this right, it has to because of the nature of addiction, is not what most people think. Most people think if I'm going to go to church, follow Jesus, I got to try harder to be a better person. I got to try harder to be nice. I got to try harder to not swear. Got to try harder to read the Bible more often, or give more money, or not look at porn, or not yell at the kids, or not complain about my marriage, or not complain because I'm not married, or not complain about my job, or not complain because I don't have a job, or whatever it is. No. The first step is not to try harder to fix anything. The first step is to say, I can't. I need help. I am a train wreck. The first step is when my ego and my pride get deflated and I actually hit bottom and I'm ready to give up. And you will not like this. You will not like the first step because nobody likes to feel weak. We want to feel strong. When I started going to high school, I was a little over 6 feet tall and I weighed 120 pounds. That does not look strong. And things never changed a whole lot for me in the muscle department. Years ago, my wife Nancy and I were watching a movie that she had chosen with a heavily muscled action star named Sylvester Stallone. And it took place in the mountains, so everybody else in the movie is wearing parkas and heavy jackets all through the movie, except for Stallone, who for some reason could not keep his shirt on. Scene after scene, just dangling from ropes with deltoids and biceps and pecs rippling off the screen. And finally, this happens again. And my wife looks at him, and then she looked over at me. And then she looked back at him, and then she looked back at me, and she shook her head, and she said, "You know, I've just never been attracted to well-built men." Like, I know there's a compliment in there somewhere, but I don't know where it is. Here's the truth, the humiliating truth. I am weak. I cannot fix myself. I cannot fix my family. I cannot fix my regrets and my failures, my pain. I don't mean I used to be weak, but now I've discovered the secret of being strong, and I'll tell you, on my own, I can't. Now, this first step is very countercultural because our world will tell you, you can do it. You got this. See, and the secret that people who know they have an addiction are real clear on is, no, this got me. This got me. In fact, in the 12-step community, they've discovered something that folks in the Bible discovered, which is the more deeply you feel the pain of your powerlessness and desperation, the closer you are to God. It's a real strange thing. Very often, it's people who have felt the pain of life apart from God. Addiction, betrayal, grief, prison, failure, divorce, scandal, job loss, broken family, depression, humiliation, who become so desperate for God, they'll cut a hole through the roof of a building just to get to Him. In the 12 steps, they actually talk about, again, everything's real sticky there, the gift of desperation. G-O-D. Gift of desperation. I was talking to a man who taught in 12-step circles for many years, and he said the problem in most churches is people have a wimpy step one. I don't really think I'm powerless. I'm not. My life's not that unmanageable. He said the problem with a wimpy step one is if you have a wimpy step one, you will have a wimpy steps 2 through 12. Or whatever your program is. Everybody has a program. Program's just a way of life. Intentional or accidental, for better or for worse. Everybody's got a program. And he said, if you have a wimpy step one, and you look at the New Testament, you start going through there, very often you'll see somebody with a real robust step one, prodigal son, somebody with a real wimpy step one, elder brother. I'm doing pretty good. I'm home with the Father. And it's the real powerful step one. I'm lost. I'm desperate that when Jesus comes, He's it. I got to have Him. And the people with kind of a wimpy step one, I can take Him or leave Him. So let me just say this. Maybe you're here today and you are beaten and you are weak and you feel at the end. A writer named Dallas Willard, wonderful Christian thinker, used to say that God's address is at the end of your rope. That's where God's address is. I'm at the end of my rope. Zacchaeus at the end of his rope. That prodigal son at the end of his rope. That adulterous woman at the end of her rope. And there He is. And strangely, the more powerfully people experience the first step, the closer they are to God. So maybe that's your step today. Admit, I'm powerless. I can't. And then that leads to a second step. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Maybe you kind of wrestle with that one. In our day, a lot of people want to believe, maybe, but we just tend to find belief hard in our day for a variety of reasons. So let me say this. The 12 steps are real careful to make quite clear the language around them. Belief here does not mean you can't have any doubts or you can't have any questions. I'll do this just to clarify the difference between faith, belief, versus knowledge certainty. Let's say that I claim I have $20 in this hand right here. Who believes me? Anybody? Any one person here in this room actually believe that I have $20 in this hand? Just raise your hand right now. Somebody way back here. All right, I'm going to have to walk all the way back here. One person in this. This is a very suspicious church. So is it your hand right here? What's your name? Benjamin? All right, now, so Benjamin believed. The only one of all of you who believed was Benjamin. Now, Benjamin, I'm going to destroy your faith. And I'll do that by opening my hand and showing I did have $20 in my hand. So would you pass that back to Benjamin? Don't keep it, because you didn't believe. Benjamin, there you go. Okay? So, see, where knowledge is possible, faith is impossible. So then you know. To believe, to trust, to have faith, that's something that fits human beings. Now, let's say I claim I have $1,000 in my left hand. Who believes? Yeah, it's too late now. That's not going to happen. So the question here is, do I actually believe? And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be certainty. It doesn't have to be no questions. But the early church, like folks that will come to these meetings, will be gripped by this conviction. There is a power greater than me. Oh, I'm not alone. Paul was so gripped by this. I want to unpack this statement for a moment, because sometimes I think we just gloss over the words of the Bible. They just kind of sound Bible-y or cliche-ish or something. And we don't actually think about them. So I want you to think about, what does this statement claim about God that Paul writes to the church at Ephesus? Now, to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work in us, to him be glory in the church and in Jesus Christ. Think about what Paul is saying about God here. First of all, God is able. He's not a distant spectator. He's active and involved at work. Our God is able. Our God is able. Not just that. Our God is able to do what we ask. He's not a vending machine, but he answers prayer. Not just that. He's able to do what we ask or imagine. He's able to do stuff that we can dream about, but we wouldn't even think to ask. What we ask or imagine. Not just that. He's not able to do just most of what we can ask or imagine. He is able to do all we can. No. He's bigger than that. He is able to do more than all we can ask. No, Paul says. No, he's bigger than that. He's not able to do just a little bit more. He is able to do, and Paul here is so desperate, he literally makes up a word. Immeasurably more, exceedingly abundantly more. There's just nothing that's consistent with his character and logically possible that our God cannot do. He can say, let there be light, and there's light. There's the universe. He can say, peace be still, and the storm is calm. He can give an old couple, Abraham and Sarah, a little child. He can give a young boy, David, victory over a giant. He is able to make a drought, able to make a flood, able to make a rainbow. He is able to provide manna in the morning, water from a dry rock, feed 5,000 with a few loaves and a few fish, able to deliver people from impossible situations, from a lion's den, from a fiery furnace. In our day, from addiction, he is able to take hopeless alcoholics, give them sobriety, dead marriages, breathe life back into them, fill death row inmates with love. I have seen that happen. Able to forgive sin, able to heal shame, able to provide meaning, able to raise Jesus of Nazareth from the dead and promise a resurrection to this sorry, dark world. Our God is able. That's what Paul is saying. Our God is able. You don't have to have no doubts. You don't have to have no questions, not at all. How much do I need to believe? Just, you need to believe enough to be willing to do step 3. Came to believe. Power greater than myself. Able to restore. And I love not just to sobriety, but to sanity, to clarity about reality. Because sin is crazy. And then that leads to step 3. Made the decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Now, this is the great crossroads. So maybe you're here today and this is your step 3. Maybe you've never done it before. Maybe you've done it, but then you kind of took it back. Problem with our will is I keep turning it over and taking it back. Okay, God, here's my kids. Whoops, I'm worried about them. Here's my money. Whoops, need some of that. And this step 2 comes directly from Scripture. This is Jesus' great invitation and challenge. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life, my ego, my desire on the throne, they'll lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. And I want to tell you, if you take that step, part of what you will discover is you're entering into a spiritual reality. Well, God will meet you there. When I turn my will and my life, our wills were made to surrender to God. And then we're on a journey together with him and a journey toward him. And he will show up. I grew up in Rockford, Illinois. And many years ago, when I was going to seminary thinking about church work, I went back to visit my parents in Rockford. And I went to get a haircut. And the man who was cutting my hair, Jim, asked me what I was doing, and I told him, and he was real interested about church and faith and asked me a bunch of questions. So when we were done, I said, my mom and dad, John and Kathy, they live here in Rockford. They lead a Bible study. If you and your wife wanted to come, they would love it. His wife, Pam, worked at the same studio and did my mom's hair. So when I went home, I said to my mom, next time you see Pam, you got to talk to her about God. She and her husband are really interested. And my mom said, no, she is not interested. I know her. She leads a very non-faith-based life. She's been through 5 marriages. Not going to do that. I said, Mom, you're wrong. You should talk to her. She'd be very interested. So the next time my mom went to get her hair done, she's sitting in the chair. She sees Pam. She remembers our conversation. And she actually prayed a little prayer. God, I do not want to talk to Pam about you. I know she's not interested, so if you want me to talk to her about you, you got to give me a sign. True story. Pam walked up to my mom and said, Kathy, I understand that you and your husband, John, lead a Bible study. Would it be okay if Jim and I came to it? My mother took that as a sign, and they started talking, and Pam told her story. She grew up in a family that was religiously very confusing. One parent was Jewish, another parent was Catholic. So she would be taken to the synagogue every week, and then when she got home, the other parent would make her say the rosary and ask forgiveness for going to a synagogue. When she was 16, she said she could drink any guy she knew under the table. Already started cycling through marriages when she was 21. Life's just train wreck. Eventually, she got into AA, cycled through a bunch of marriages, and received sobriety, began to do the steps. But when she got to step 3, turn my will and my life over to the care of God, she wanted nothing to do with God. So she said, I will name my higher power Ralph. And in AA, it's kind of starter spirituality. It's about sobriety, so they'll let folks do that, and that's what she did. But it wasn't working real great. And she was kind of white-knuckling it, and the marriage cycle kept going around. And then she went to a meeting. She's telling my mom all this. She went to a meeting one time, and she's not doing too well. And this guy gets up to speak, and he's a mess. He does not smell good. He is still partly drunk. He's been vomiting. His clothes are disheveled. He is unshaven. He is, not somebody that anybody else would want to be around. And he stands up, and he says, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Ralph. And it sounds kind of funny to us, but to her, it was like a knife to the heart. And she said, that's not my God. Ralph will only get you so far. Ralph will only get you so far. You can give your higher power whatever name you'd like to give it, but I'll just tell you, Ralph will only get you so far. But she had started this journey. And so part of what she began to pray on that day is, God, would you introduce yourself to me? And then she ended up in that chair and then in that Bible study. And eventually came the day for her and for like millions and millions and millions of other people throughout centuries turned their life and their will over to the care of God. I'll say one other thing about that, and then we'll close. I think Luke's going to come out. Because a lot of people wrestle not so much with, is God able? The other part of it is, turn my life and my will over to the care of God, and I can only do that if I genuinely believe not only is God able, but God cares. And sometimes for people like with Pam, for whatever reason, you just grew up in something like, I'm not sure that there is a caring God out there. So there's a wonderful image in the Bible about God like a parent with a little child. A man named Richard Foster writes about this. Humanly, we often struggle with our kids. A dad is in a grocery store and his kid is just losing it, throwing a tantrum, screaming, throwing things, very badly behaved. And the father just keeps saying very quietly and slowly, we can do this, Isaac. You can get through this, Isaac. It'll be okay, Isaac. And a woman said to him, I'm amazed how patient you are with your son, Isaac. And he said, no, my son's name is Hans. My name is Isaac. We've all kind of been there. And Richard Foster writes about a dad in a store like that with his little kid, and the kid's losing it and crying, and he keeps trying different ways to calm his son down, but nothing's working. So finally, in desperation, this dad starts singing to his little boy. Just starts making up a goofy song out of nothing. I like you. I'm glad you're my boy. I love to see you smile. I love to hold you in my arms. As long as you're alive, I will always be your daddy, and you will always be my little boy. And all of a sudden, that little boy quiets down. And his eyes get real big, and his face gets real still. And his daddy sings him all the way out to the car, puts him in his little car seat in the parking lot, and the boy throws his arms up and says, sing it to me again, Daddy. And this is the picture that the prophet uses in the scripture. The Lord sings over his people. The Lord sings over his people. Like a mom sings a lullaby when that little child is afraid. Like a dad sings a made-up song over that little child when it's upset. God cares. God's heart is like that and better. So that's the third step. I got one will, I got one life. What am I going to do with it? It's going to be in service to something. It's going to be attached to something. Is there really a better alternative than the God that Jesus taught? Those are the first three steps. There's other ones, you'll look at that later on. They're sometimes summarized like this, just to make sure that you can remember what the sermon was if anybody asks you. Real simple phrases. First one, admitted, powerless, life unmanageable. Can't believe higher power can restore us, turn our life and our will over. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. That's it. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. So just to make sure, if somebody asks you, what was the sermon about today? You're able to give them a coherent answer. Let's say those phrases together, and you can take them with you. Here we go. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. God, I thank you for this church. I thank you for SLO. Thank you for this community. Thank you for the beauty and the goodness of it. I thank you that this is a parking lot church. This is a basement church. And I pray that you will keep it that way, where real, raw, messy, honest, ragged people can come. Now in this moment, if any one of those steps is saying today, I can't, God, I'm desperate, I need help, just tell him that. If it's step 2, you're coming to believe, God, I have questions, I got doubts, I'm not certain, but but I want to believe, I want help, I want to meet you, I want to know more about you. Tell them. Or if you want to do what millions of other people have done for so many centuries now, God, here's my life. I know I'll make a mess of it. Here's my life. Here's my will. I surrender it to you. I want you to be my leader, my forgiver, my Lord. You do that right now. God, we can't, but you can. We love you and we are grateful. Sing over us today. I pray for all the people here, God, that you would sing over them this day. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.